right, good afternoon, evening, or morning, wherever you are in the world listening to this. We got people all over the place. So, what we have here today is Tim Thomson, and we're going to talk about something interesting in that people need to learn how to differentiate their MSP. And for some reason, Tim knows a lot about this. Tim, can you tell me a little bit about your history and why differentiating your MSP is something that is near and dear to your heart?
Sure. Thanks for the introduction and excited to be here, Adam. I appreciate the opportunity. I was fortunate enough to build a $7 million a year managed services company up in Canada for about 22 years. It took me to get there. I got out of it a couple of years ago. And as we evolved into, we started it before MSP was actually a word or a buzzword. And so we've evolved into the MSP 1.0, and then the cloud came around and it evolved into the MSP 2.0. And now we're teetering between 2.0 and 3.0. And what I see, if you look at the market space between all the MSPs, we're basically offering the same type of services with different type of spins on them. But the reality is there's not a really big differentiating market anymore. However, in the last, probably 9 to 12 months, we have this thing called artificial intelligence that's really picked up, that's really taken over the world by storm. And there's also another tool that I've been working with a digital work analytics platform through Produce 8. And so what I'm really trying to do is mature managed service providers from a 2.0 with cybersecurity and an operational maturity level into more of a business decision optimization partner for their customers by implementing and being a forward thinker or a thought leader in the AI space and digital work analytics to become a true business partner as opposed to just a technology advisor. And what's happening is with the MSPs that I've been working with have taken early adoption into low-hanging fruit on the AI side and having some really strong, quick, great conversations in their QBRs and their monthly meetings. And it's opening the eyes because a lot of the owners on the business side don't understand AI. And so they're looking for the MSPs to be that thought leader on it. As well as the digital work analytics. It's just a different conversation and a different story to help the MSPs show their customers how to be more productive through the digital work analytics platform with Produce 8.
So when you say business like maturity or business strategy alignment, what do you mean by that? Because I think MSPs tend to have a different thought of like what it means to help with business maturity than what you and I do.
Yeah, and that's, what the challenge that we have, most MSP owners, IT people start IT companies to solve IT problems. I say that all the time. They don't have the business acumen to step into a boardroom with ownership or leadership or executive groups to speak at the business level. The shiny stuff wears off. Nobody cares about the blinky lights and the firewalls. What we need to have, what I help MSPs do is help them produce outcomes to create better experiences for their customers. If we can create a business outcome that solves a problem, that creates a better experience for the end user or the customer, then the MSP will build that bond and that trust and that relationship to last as long as they need to, or a lifetime, that as long as they're part of that customer, right? So that's really the vision, is getting out of getting off the toolbox, the tools off the hip, and getting into more of a business mindset to solve outcomes to produce better experiences.
Yeah, I think we had Sam Weiner on here in January, and he talked about like this experiential vineyard, like be able to listen to certain music in certain rooms, and this customer experience they were trying to give people who came into the vineyard. And when that happened, Sam was thinking of all these things that he could help out with, like Spotify on demand and these different things that he could help them with multi-room technologies. And what I really like about that is the fact that he was helping them grow and solve problems as a business to differentiate themselves. He didn't walk in and say, hey, here's some technologies that you have to be implementing to be secure. He sat and listened to them about what they're trying to accomplish
Right.
from a business strategy standpoint. And then he came back with, okay, I think I can help you on some of these things. I happen to know how to do these music and streaming, and I
Mhm.
happen to know how to get certain computers that are able to help you track your vineyard a little bit better and your growth cycles. And you start answering questions for them about that. And I think more MSPs need to lean into that because everybody else is talking about speeds, feeds, tickets, how fast a computer is, how great they are at responding to problems. But rarely do I hear an MSP say, "Hey, what are your biggest things you're working on in the company right now?
Right.
Tell me about your company. Show me what's going on." And that's why we encourage MSPs to do SWOT exercises with their clients because the SWOT exercise is to be focused on the client and learning about them so that you can line up technologies that are going to solve these problems or take advantage of opportunities or mitigate threats
Right.
from their perspective. And as long as you can do that, you are doing business alignment. But if
Yeah.
you think that for some reason by walking in with a SOC 2 audit or walking in with a better way of handling Azure so they can get to the cloud, that's business strategy, you're forcing a topic on them. So
No, and I agree. I mean, forever I always heard, well, we're going to align business goals with technology alignment, and nobody ever does that, right? And so the SWOT framework I love because you can dig deep into all of the aspects of what they're going through at the business level, but it also gets into more of a conversation that we spoke about last week is how do we ask connection questions like what is the what happens if we don't do this, or what's the outcome if this doesn't happen, then how do we do that, or what's the number one thing that you want to change in your business in the next 90 days? Right. So answering those questions in a very specific tonality, along with the SWOT, as you kind of work through that, you're going to get a gold mine of information as an MSP if you're listening, as opposed to talking about blinky lights and cybersecurity, that you can take away and generate and come back with thousands and thousands of dollars of potential project work. And the cool thing is, we talked about a little bit before, is if there's an opportunity for a project that they absolutely love, but it's not in the budget, then guess what? We put it in the budget for next year and we create a forecast. And so now, as we go through our customer base and do SWOT analysis and ask proper questions, even if they can't afford to pay for it, it's not in the budget this year, then we know we can at least put eyes on it and have it set for next year. And then you'll have more of a true look into the crystal ball of where you're going with your business and how you're going to help them solve those problems. You're mute. You're mute.
we have a crystal ball episode we do every year at the end of the year, and it's all about can we see what's coming up in 2025 or every year, like at the end of 2023 we did 2024, the year ahead.
Yep.
And technology people are actually fairly good and at seeing the future. It's kind of our world. However, you can only see the future you're aware of, right? If you don't know your clients are struggling in an area, you can't forecast out solutions for them. You're going to keep focusing on what you know. You're going to keep focusing on, I know that they need more security. I know that they need more, better technology, but you don't focus on what kinds of technology. So if you think like, man, this company really struggles with getting sales contracts out to their prospects.
Right.
Okay, how can I in IT help with that? Well, you know what? There's some really great AI tools that help build contracts that
Right.
I could teach them how to use and I could support for them.
Mhm.
And then you got to build a revenue stream around that, right? Or maybe it's just something that you're just going to make them aware of. And hey, here's our recommended AI tools for different situations. And they see you as kind of a partner, like, oh, they've already looked at all the AI tools. Here are the ones that they recommend. And you post them on your website or you send them out as a newsletter or whatever. And they start seeing you as a strategist. Then when they start looking at, hey, how do I store these contracts? How do I get it so I can share them really easily and e sign them? you know what? We have something called SharePoint. We can actually host that for you. You already pay for it. It'll take us some hours to set it up for you. And now you're basically becoming this person who's integral to their system because you're looking into the crystal ball of the problems they're having down the road
Mhm.
and you're giving them answers today. I
Yeah.
guarantee you, most technology people, we're 10 years ahead of a lot of people.
Right.
So we are living in the future that they're trying to work towards. So when
Mhm.
you come up and you can say like, "Hey, do you know you can share documents and you can live edit them?" Any high schooler knows this.
Right.
There are business people out there running very successful businesses that do not know
Yeah.
that you can co-author documents.
At the same time,
They
yeah.
don't know that you can take a document and you can grab a template and build your own template where you can copy it down on the fly and have it e-signed with your
Mhm.
own system.
I know. Yeah.
And you're going to sound incredulous here, like, but no, this is the world we live in. They don't need bleeding edge. Some of them do. Some of them want like, I want the AI, I want
Right.
Claude to build things for me. Can you run a workshop to show my employees how to build things with Claude? Sure. We'll run a $2,000 workshop. We'll have as many employees who want to come in, and we will train them all.
Yeah.
That's going to be rare. Most likely, the technology that your client needs that's in a crystal that they think is crystal ball came out 5 to 10 years
There we
ago.
go.
They
Yeah.
just don't know about it.
That's right. 100%. And the other challenge that I see is that there's not enough relationship building between the MSP and their customers. They either wait for their monthly or their QBRs. When I was building my $7 million MSP, I was either having coffee or a beer or at least once a week or once every 2 weeks or a month with my key customers that were spending $1 million a year with me. And by just having a beer with one of my key customers, I learned that their video was being stored in a whole bunch of different USBs that cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars of data or video that you can never get back. It's priceless based off the content. And so I put together a huge storage system for it. It was $750,000. And that's just because I was out having a beer, building a relationship, building trust. And it wasn't just talking about technology. It's like, hey, how's your kids doing? What's going on? What's new? How's the business? Where's it going? And all of a sudden you uncover these opportunities. And because as you stated, the IT owners or the IT people were so far ahead, we forget that we have, relationships to build that we can translate the information that we have into problems to solve or outcomes for the business.
Yeah. And I love when I see technology people do that. So when I worked in the corporate world, I always tell these stories all the time where I'd have a level one tech and there were multiple forces in that were going on at once. And a level one tech was the linchpin, right? So you had the famous story I tell, I've told it a million times, is that I had all of these crews that would go out in trucks and they would fix things in the field. I mean, you're talking like 70 crews here.
Mm.
Some of my listeners used to work with me at this organization, and these are really intelligent, hardworking people, but they still have to fill out timesheets. And so we built an online timesheet system so they could just enter them in from wherever they were.
Mhm.
Well, the problem was they didn't have internet in their trucks, so they would come back to the office, and this crew of seven would spend an hour a week entering in all this information. Or their supervisor would enter it in and like they'd have write down on paper, and then he would enter it in on their behalf. And so there's all this time wasted. Think like 3 to 7 hours a week are wasted on this times 70 crews. And so one
Yeah.
of the new employees came in right out of a JUCO and does a ride along because he needs to learn about what the company does. And comes back and goes, they're still filling out timesheets by hand or coming in the office to do that. Why aren't we giving them hotspots? I
Mhm.
said, I didn't know they didn't have hotspots. That's not my area. I'm cybersecurity. We're just having this
Yeah.
conversation. So then he's like, yeah, but if we bought a hotspot for each one of these trucks, it's going to cost and he's like doing the math in his head because he's a smart guy. He's like, that's $120 per car or whatever it was at the time for the
Yeah.
hotspot. And I do the math in my head and I'm multiplying it by employee hours,
Yeah.
by cost of labor.
So,
Like,
yeah.
I walk over and said, give me the price per hotspot and let me take care of the rest.
Yeah.
Right. And all the so there was things that were going on here. It's like the crews didn't know it was possible to have a hotspot in the car. The tech thought it was too cost prohibitive to have a hotspot in every car.
Yeah.
And there's the directors and the managers mill going, well, that's a no-brainer.
Oh yeah.
I'm just going to buy a hotspot for every single vehicle, and we're going to save 700 hours a week.
Yeah.
And so it's it's crazy.
We had that. We had that
But
up in a
that's the way your clients are. If you want to differentiate yourself, you got to think this way, that
right.
they don't know that
That's
there's
right.
better technology that will make them a crap ton of money.
Mm-hmm. Well, the whole buy back your time. You just think about all those hours that you can, like, if that was a lawyer firm, if they're billing by the hour to their customers, like if you had 700 hours a month that you could now take it and bill, like, could you imagine what that would look like on the balance sheet or the P&L?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So
that's the difference between thinking at the technology level and thinking at the business level.
yes. And that's where I was trying to drive at with your question there. It's like a lot of MSPs think that they're business focused, but it's because they run their MSP like a tech department.
Yeah.
They're not thinking in terms of a technology business. And a lot of you, it shows because you grew up as a technician. You worked as a technician. You started a company as a technician, and you never got to the idea of what is scalability look like. What is profitability like? What does blue ocean markets look like? How do I take advantage of market climates? How do I do a splash? How do I do like these different things where you're trying to take advantage of a market?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're like, now today, a lot of you are tuning into this podcast thinking like, okay, I want to differentiate. I've recognized that I need to be different than every other tech with a fluke and a laptop out there.
Right.
I need to be different. What does that look like? And what it looks like is you have to be able to look into that crystal ball on behalf of your client
Mm-hmm.
and solve problems specific to them. And a lot of times, in order to do that, you have to niche up, which we've talked about on this podcast previous this year. This last quarter, we focused on that.
Yeah.
You have to think, can you solve problems for dentist offices? Can you solve problems for medical offices or lawyers or for flower shops or bakeries or restaurants? Do you have a unique value prop in those areas? Maybe you worked on one for a while. Maybe you built a card payment system for mobile operations. What is it that you can solve and help a company solve that no one else can?
Right. That's it.
So I'll challenge you. Like, what did your MSP do on differentiating itself?
That's a good question. We took the lead on a lot of the business consulting stuff that I was doing, and so having those conversations around at the business level to identify future problems. I did a lot of vendor partnerships with some ISPs that were pretty high up, so I could solve large problems like internet issues up north in the middle of nowhere, other than a hot stick. A lot of relationships that I built created not only referrals, but it created revenue through that. And we were fortunate to get some fairly large customers, so we implemented a very sturdy service desk early on in our career that really had the maturity to go through the process of escalations and ticket types and different things that we did. So we matured fairly quickly just because we had larger customers, and we had some very credible customers that really made us stand out.
Okay. What do you mean by credible customers that make you stand out?
Well, I had two NHL teams and the largest nonprofit sporting organization in the world, Hockey Canada.
Okay.
So I had my first three customers were all entertainment and sports and a large nonprofit. So that nonprofit of Hockey Canada got me into a very large nonprofit as well throughout Western Canada. So again, it's that relationship thing. It's solving business problems. It's having the trust that, the president and the CEO of Hockey Canada referred me to the president and CEO of the Calgary Flames, which is few and far between, right? So once you kind of build that relationship, build that trust, solve those problems. I spent 12 years managing the IT at the Calgary Flames network, and I put in $500,000 worth of wireless and $1 million worth of POS systems, because I just had the business acumen to work at that level to go through the motions to put that in.
Yeah, I think what people need to hear there is, of all the things that he just listed, what sticks in my head is 2 NHL teams. It wasn't the size of the network he put in. It wasn't the which is really great from a technical standpoint. These are great, amazing things, but they just wash over me as a business person.
Right.
Oh, cool! You've managed some big projects. That's really neat. What I see is the credibility of, oh, I like hockey too.
Right.
That differentiates you. Now, other hockey, have you ever worked with a hockey team before? Yes, we have. We understand the unique problems and the 1,000 things that you are working on at once. We're not just another MSP. We're somebody who has experience in your industry that knows what your problems are, and we've gone through these problems with other entities.
Oh.
Differentiating your MSP is leaning into what makes you unique, and it can't be just tech. It has to be your relationships. It has to be your marketplaces. It has to be your unique ability to foresee problems in industries that other people can't.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want everyone to focus on that in this episode. And, Tim does a lot of coaching as we wrap up here. I think if you want to reach out to Tim, where can we find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me at tthomson@cybertrends.ca. And I'll be available, and my website too, cybertrends.ca as well. So anybody's interested in learning more, or you want to have a quick 30-minute call, I'll be happy to do that.
And you'll help people scale their MSP, look and build culture issues. You'll help them with all these like pragmatic issues that you're having. Tim's been through. He's successfully done. He's not a charlatan. He's not pretending to have done these things. He's actually accomplished them. And that's something that you guys need to remember, is that there's a difference between somebody who's been through this and helped MSPs and done this, and somebody who says, oh, I understand organizational theory.
Right. So everything in my 12-week program, I built the 12-week program that's made everything in that program is what made me successful and how I scaled to $7 million. So yeah, I've been around, I've done it. And so I would be happy to help in any way I can.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim, for coming on. And we're going to have you on next week to talk about how to scale your MSP. Cool. So depending on what order you watch and listen to our podcast in, you might want to go check out Tim's other one. Thank you for coming on, Tim, and we'll see you later.
Thank you very much.